why do we exist, is really enabling capital deployment to be a lot more efficient and effective in maximizing value creation. That's really what we exist. If you look at the industry over the last while, it's an amazing industry. A lot of people aren't aware of this. There's tons of money out there. There's far more cash and capital available. Then there are great executable ideas and companies to take advantage of. In the industry, it's called dry powder. Right? It's trillions of dollars of dry powder where these companies have amassed to be able to be deployed, but haven't actually found the right opportunities to put their money to work. That's a bit of context. Right? Now, helping them actually find opportunities that are really presenting themselves to take advantage of this capital available, and then once deployed, really making sure that the capital is put to best use as efficiently and as effectively as possible, is really that whole value stream. Now, how that presents itself to us, broadly speaking, is you'll do commercial due diligence, which is identifying the opportunity, doing the diligence to make sure that it really warrant, whether it be the $100 million to $1 billion investment that we're about to make, and in very short iteration, right? We're talking about 2 to 3 weeks being able to answer some very key decision-making questions, and the sizes are pretty big, right? So that's one part of the work. The rest of it is during that whole period, which is when it's as a portfolio company for that private equity firm. It used to be about 5 to 7 years of when they would hold a company before they look to exit from that. That's now slowly kind of shifted to a 5 to 3 year window. In those periods, intervening on some high-end opportunities to help accelerate the value creation journey. So how do you bought a company for $1 billion? You want to make it a $3 billion and hand it over to the next owner. That being done in a shorter window than what it was earlier. So there's a whole bunch of whether it be go-to-market initiatives, cost optimization initiatives, acquisitions, pricing strategies. How do you find the 20-80 that really matters the most? How do you differentiate your service levels to them? A whole bunch of different initiatives, right? Which we get involved as value enhancement projects during that whole period. And then finally, in that whole kind of exit phase, typically 1 year to 6 months before they really start thinking about presenting it to the market, working very diligently with the management team and the private equity firm to really help tell the story, right? Really kind of narrate what's in it for the next owner. Here's the next 3 to 5 years, how you make now, let's say hypothetically the 3 billion, 10 billion, and being able to narrate that story, and that's called sell side. So that's broadly the 3 areas that we globally support, and Colombo is involved in all 3 of those. Again, one of those things during this whole process truly differentiated Stax across the pack, right, of what's available. As you know, having global offices is not a new thing, but out of the rest where Stax really differentiated, I think, is in using Colombo very strategically. So if you go back to 17 years ago when the first investment was made, the rationale for Colombo coming on board wasn't a cost arbitrage driven decision. It was a value driven decision, right? And that's a very distinct difference. To give you a bit of context, most IT firms, everyone else kind of views Asia for really the cost advantage that it brings to the table. You have so much on the dollar, you have access to relatively cheap labor, and that's kind of the predominant thesis as to why you would do that. In the case of Stax, that's a happy byproduct. Absolutely, that has an impact. But the differentiated approach is to say, hey, can we have access to some of the smartest people and bring in things like data analytics? And then I think we truly differentiate by being data-driven. Again, everyone's talking about being data-driven, but we embedded that into our DNA. So it's from that mindset that Colombo was initiated on. Hard skills are a commodity, when I say that. It's a given. You can't get to the party if you're not good in what you're supposed to be good at. That's really a given, right? So someone's capability to know Python, to be able to know the latest, BI tools, to be able to actually know how to do ETL or data lakes, to whatever, they'll come up with a new term in the next 6 months, I'm sure, right? There's always be some new buzzword. That's a given. You need to be able to know that. But I think in terms of attributes, the soft attributes that we're looking for are people that, number one, have a thirst for knowledge. They've got to be naturally curious, right? And I think we sometimes take that for granted, but that's not a given. And I think, unfortunately, this could be probably a bit more acute in Asian countries and in Sri Lanka in particular, where our education systems, unfortunately, have got us to be a lot more spoon-fed in terms of what we're supposed to be knowing. So we've numbed out, I think, that natural kid-like curiosity that we're born with. So that's important, that anyone who's coming in kind of finds back. It's in all of us. We're born with this. So you've got to be able to unlearn, I guess, some of that numbness and get back into it. Be naturally curious and stuff. I think just being able to be, and we term it as be comfortable being uncomfortable. You're in an environment where nothing's static. There's always going to be multiple moving parts. And that's why we get paid to do what we do. You need to be able to deal with ambiguity, find clarity, progressively level it. You're never going to get the whole solution upfront, but make movement in iteration.